This week is used week at Park Cameras. That means we've got lots of deals going on. You can check out some links down in the description of this video, but it really got me thinking about the kind of stuff that I use and what I recommend to people when they ask me what kind of camera they should get. So I obviously use a lot of the newest tech. I review new cameras, new lenses all the time, so I'm using a lot of the newest stuff. But when people ask me for recommendations, I always find myself actually coming back to looking at used equipment, stuff that maybe isn't the newest, but still has a very relevant place for someone looking to get a new camera at really all kinds of different levels. When I'm not shooting on the latest tech, I actually film all these videos on a Sony a7 III. That's a camera that came out nearly 5 years ago, and it still holds up really well. The lens I use every day for photo, for video, for all kinds of work is around about 6 years old. There's new tech coming out all the time, but there's still absolutely a place for some of these older cameras. And since it's used week, let's talk about how relevant are some of these older systems in 2022. It can be really easy to get caught up with new buzzwords, specification, features, new things in those new cameras and lenses that you just feel like you're really missing out on if you don't have. We've probably all experienced that fear of missing out when they bring out the new version of whichever model of camera you have, and it seems very shiny and fun and exciting. But there are a lot of advantages to buying a slightly older system. For one, older systems can often have benefited from firmware updates. Take my a7 III, for example. I've had a number of firmware updates that added things like animal IAF, added things like interval shooting for doing time lapses and things like that, stuff that wasn't on the camera when I first purchased it, but I now have access to. Another huge advantage of buying maybe a slightly older system is there are often a huge number of both native and then third-party lenses and other equipment as well that you can get for those cameras. So take the Canon 80D, for example. I actually owned this camera back in sort of 2017. This was a fantastic camera for me as someone who was really kind of getting into photography and video on a more serious level. You know, it had everything I needed for it, but it also had a huge stable of EF lenses, both Canon native lenses varying in all kinds of price ranges, but also third-party lenses, you know, Sigma, Samyang, Tamron, all kinds of stuff that you can get. And that's one huge advantage you can get on an older system like this. Not only is there a huge amount to choose from, there's also probably quite a big price range as well. So for example, the Canon 80D, you could then buy new lenses, you could buy used lenses. There's loads and loads of EF lenses to get for a camera like this. But I hear what you're saying. What about things like autofocus? What about things like megapixel count? What about video capabilities? Well, yes, it's absolutely true that the newer cameras are generally better at a lot of that kind of stuff. That's gonna make sense, right? Because tech is always advancing. So the newest cameras are gonna give you the best autofocus systems. They really are out of this world. They're going to give you higher megapixel counts generally, and they're going to give you better video spec if you're a hybrid shooter as well. But you know, something like the 80D, I use this for actual paid commercial shoots for small businesses, video and photo for a long time, and I never had any issue with it. I know this camera somewhat inside out, and I would happily go and shoot with it again. Something like the a7 III, I've done the same thing. I've used that for photo and for video commercial shoots for actual clients, as well as of course shooting all of these videos as well. Just because those new cameras are better doesn't mean that these older cameras are bad. You know, they can still be good while the new ones can be great. Of course, the biggest advantage of buying a used camera like this is the price. You can get an incredibly decent system and probably a better camera than you might otherwise have bought for a similar or even cheaper price than some of the newer cameras. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. If you were someone starting out in photography or video and you were really excited about it, I almost always recommend going for a used camera. You're gonna get more bang for your buck, you're gonna get more that you can do with it. It's gonna future-proof your photography for a decent amount of time, probably longer than buying a cheaper new camera. Using an older DSLR or an older mirrorless camera can actually help you as a photographer, you know, because you won't have that latest technology to rely on, you know, eye tracking, eye autofocus, or maybe shooting it at a crazy high ISO with no noise. You might actually have to figure stuff out, like lighting a little bit more than you might otherwise have to. You have to overcome a few challenges, which does actually in the long term benefit you. It makes you a better photographer because you then don't have to shoot at a super high ISO, even though you could. You might choose to use better lighting, which is then going to create a better photo. You're going to think about these things a little bit more because you had no choice, which means that once you do have the choice with a newer camera, with a better camera, you're still making the right choice going forward. There's a lot of super fun technology out there with a lot of these newer cameras, and they are really, really exciting, but there is absolutely a place for some of the older DSLR and older mirrorless cameras. They're super relevant now, and for anyone starting out, for anyone looking to upgrade, for anyone looking for a second camera, really for anyone, used cameras make a lot of sense to check out. What do you think? Let me know what you think about used cameras versus new cameras down in the comments. Is this something that you always go for? Would you ever consider going for a used camera? What's the last camera and lens that you actually bought? I'd love to know that as well. That'd be really interesting. Let me know all that down in the comments. Of course, go and check out all the deals on Newsweek down in the description. There's a link so you can go and check everything out for yourself. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll of course see you in the next video. But until then, as always, thanks for watching.